in a nutshell, some of the things that you can expect to get just for the month of March, all right? Now, I just want to give you a little brief rundown. It's going to be more intense than that because each class we expect... Oh, now the sound is better. Each class we expect to last for the duration of about 2 hours. Within 2 hours, you'll be able to ask questions, get answers. Documentation will be provided. Okay, so we'll take care of you as far as that is concerned. Last night, I was talking to some sisters, and they was asked that if I could please bring by some of the books that they removed from the Old Testament. So I have the Old Testament Pseudepigrapha, Volume 1 and Volume 2. All right, and this contains a lot of information about UFOs, the race of giants, the Titans, Kronos, many, many things. It goes heavily into the Antichrist, what he will look like, the things he'll do. He'll have his own fleet of UFOs, all right, and how the actual galactic battle is going to take place, where it's going to take place. It goes into backing up if you read the New Testament, Revelations about war in heaven, and Satan, the dragon, was cast down. Okay, well, this is the Old Testament, which means it comes before the New Testament, and in here it gives you the full detail about the actual battle itself that took place, and he was kicked out, and of course they came here to earth before our time. And now here we are here, and one of the responsibilities that we had for coming here is to be what you will call their prison wardens. We're supposed to keep them in check, but somehow they flipped it around, and now they've got us running crazy. And they've got us in prison down here. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. So when you hear some people talk about Earth in part being a slightly penal colony, well, yeah, that's true, but it all depends on who you're talking about. We wasn't sent here to be prisoners. They were. We were sent here to contain them. The Old Testament Pseudepigrapha. It's a long word, okay? So I'm not going to attempt to spell out right now because, you know, we want to get Brother Delbert Blair up here as soon as we can. The author is James H. Charlesworth. So if you don't write it down now, you know, after the lecture, I'll have the book, so you just come over and just write the information down. You can get this at Barnes & Noble, all right? And usually when I travel, I bring almost my entire house worth of books. But I didn't do that today, all right? Not today. Some of the other things I want to show that Brother Hakeem, the brother who set up the table in the back, some of the books we'll be dealing with is, I mentioned last night, which he has back there now, Advanced Aviation in Ancient Times, Ancient Nuclear Technology. All right? And this is just a sampling of some of the things that Brother Hakeem do carry. All right? Ancient Sciences, he has that back there. For some of the classes that we will have, I would recommend that you get this and this from him. This is the easiest thing you can get your hands on right now. So, and if the brother isn't here, he usually sets up on 125th Street sometimes, and if he's not there, you can, when the weather is good, you can catch him down at the Slave Theater on Wednesday. All right, so he's the brother to see as far as a lot of this information is concerned. He has this stuff. All right, the same thing, was it the Black Moor Iroquois who designed the American government? Now, as I started out last night mentioning that the original indigenous people who were here prior to slavery were all black. All right, so, you know, to simply try to say that, lump everybody in one pot and say everybody came from Africa, I think you need to rethink that. Because when embedded in the folklore of everybody's culture, you find that they will tell you that the Creator sent them from someplace not on the earth, from out there to here, to the four corners of the earth, to help the earth, to contain the bad people, and amongst other things. And everybody who came here was of color. All right, and some folks, as they would tell you in their culture, has been in this hemisphere since the earth was. All right, so it's a nice idea to try to say we all came exactly from the same spot on the earth, but I don't really see adequate proof to prove that. Not now with all of the information, science, and data that's now being made available. This is another report that Brother Hakeem doesn't have, but you can see me about this. This is dealing with Morgan Stanley. This is a financial report a status of what's going on in Africa, all of the companies that are involved in terms of making investments there. Every company you can think of, British, American, Canadian, Asian, everybody has rushed over there to the gold pot, okay? And it gives you a list and breakdown of how much is invested, and pretty much what they can expect to return from going over and slicing the place up like they're doing now. So you can see us about this. This is a report that hasn't been published yet, but we got it. And of course, last but not least, we mentioned something about the shots, so I did promise I would bring that in. And these are some vaccination exemption letters. This is a format of one, which is in here. We have these also. So you can see us at a later date, like perhaps at the Slave Theater. I'll give Reggie a call. He was here last night, and he'll have some extra copies made up. So I would strongly recommend that you see us at least on Wednesday to get this, because there is no law, and I'm going to repeat this, there is no law that says you have to get shots. None. And this is a Senate bill right here, bill number 942, number 3380, under the title Exemption from Immunization. They have this on the books right now. All right, so that's all I have for you. I promised I wasn't going to take too much time. And just keep those dates in mind. And those of you who see me at the, the time for the classes, 7:30 to 9:30 p.m., Thursday. So if you don't remember the dates, at least when March comes in, remember Thursday evening. All right, and we're going to have plenty of good stuff for you. I won't be the only person speaking, so we'll have brothers who deal with metaphysics, brothers who deal in the areas of meditation and a few other things that deal with the Quran, because there are things that we need to know what's going on with the Quran and the scriptures and other books they took from it, and you'll see that none of this has anything to do with religion. Absolutely nothing. I'll leave you with this note. We talk about hopefully getting Brother Bobby Himmet up here, right? And you know what he deals with, the mothership, the Dogon, the Sirius star. Well, in the Quran, and those of you who have Qurans, when you go home today, look under chapter 53, called the star, 53, verse 49. And it will tell you that the same creator that we're all worshiping, believe it or not, whether or not the Arabs will claim to be, he says he is the same Lord of the mighty Sirius star. It's right in the Quran. All right? And if you have a Quran with commentary, read the commentary. They also go into the Pleiad star system, the Dogon star system. They mention it in the commentary. So, you know, they've religiousized it, and what we're seeking to do is unreligiousize it, because the book has nothing to do with religion. Absolutely nothing to do with it. All right, it confirms all of the truths and sciences that came before. All right, that's all I have for you. And again, I thank you for your patience. And Bert, are you going to... Okay, just bear with us for a flyer here. This is Time to Shine.
Today I was kind of caught off guard and just, was asked to come down to speak. And I'm just going to briefly, because Brother Maher hit a lot of good points, and I'm just going to basically dovetail off of what he already said and just add on and just re-emphasize some points. I myself, my name is Hakeem H.Y. Bey. I'm the Minister of Education for the Great Seal Moors up here in New York City, known as the Great Seal National Association of Moorish Affairs. We are a group of free and sovereign Moors who have come together and have decided to collectively govern ourselves because we feel that there are certain benefits to be derived from doing that. We have our own constitution, which is registered with the federal government, and we have our own governmental structure, which we are in the process of developing further. We have our own so-called license plates, known as Moorish driver's tags. We have our own Moorish driver's certificate. We have our own Moorish birth certificate, marriage certificate, and so on down the line. We are striving to do everything. We don't want to just talk about being a nation or ask somebody, can we be a nation? We're just going to be a nation. We're just going to be it. Simple as that. And nobody could say that what we're doing is wrong or invalid, because they have what's in law what's known as the compact theory of law, which states that if a group of free people who have declared themselves free people get together and decide to collectively govern themselves, compact together to collectively govern themselves by reason of their mutual agreement that makes that government valid. This is what the Europeans on the Mayflower did before they reached land, known as the Mayflower Compact. They was a group who compacted together to collectively govern themselves, and they landed, and you have what's known as the state of Massachusetts now. So if they come to us and say what we are doing is invalid, then what you did back then is invalid, and you don't exist and have no jurisdiction over us anyway. So we are taking some of the very similar documents that they've used, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, things that we gave to them. These are documents we already had a federal government established in this hemisphere before the Europeans even thought about setting up anything over here. Our government in this hemisphere went from Alaska to Chile. This whole hemisphere, where we are standing out right now, is what's known as Atlantis, part of which sunk into the Atlantic Ocean. Right here, the European would have us to believe that all of us are brought over here in the hulls of slave ships. And this is what most of us believe, that most of us are brought over here in the hulls of slave ships. But, you know, I heard the Empress say this one day, and I'm going to just touch on who the Empress is in a minute also. She said, just think about it for a minute. How, if you put 500 people in the bottom of a ship, they're not wearing diapers. They would have drowned their own urine and feces making that type of crossing. They wasn't bringing these people up to 500 people up to the deck every day to go to the bathroom. That's a security risk. So you got to think, you got to ask yourself a question. Why are they perpetuating this myth that we were all brought over here? There were tens of millions of us already here, set up, established. Where they're talking about the Olmecs, the Mayan, these different civilizations, we had set up already over here. Now the Empress is a Moorish sister down in Louisiana who has won back 70,000 acres of our land here in this hemisphere. Showing you that what I'm saying is not no lie. This was won in federal court, that this was our land. The name of those particular people are the Washita Moors. And later on, their names was changed by the European government to Washington. You have the Washita, and you have the Washita in the Tunica tribe, who was later changed to the Turner. And this is where you get Nat Turner and them looking for that Holy Land. Now what happened, the reason why she was able to win this land back in Louisiana was because in the Louisiana Purchase, all America actually purchased was the streets of New Orleans and the military barracks. According to the treaty, the land was reserved for the ancient ones, who were us who built those mounds and pyramids all up and down this hemisphere. The elders in this Moorish civilization, the elders have given us certain lessons. And I myself have received lessons from the elders, and I have taken these lessons and did the research to find out whether it's true or not, because when all this hit me at first, I was like, no, you know, just ain't jarring, right? You know, I studied for about 12 years. I studied under Dr. Ben at one time, Clark, you know, the whole thing. I've been selling these books for years now. For years, I've read a good deal of them, you know. But what I seen coming from the Moors was hitting a nerve somewhere else, and I had to figure this out. Now, when I personally did research on my family roots and everything, I couldn't find no stories about Africa. I found out that we were Cherokee. I found out that we owned prime land down in North Carolina. Prime land. Could property own property? If we were slaves and we were property, how could property own property? Prime land. Beachfront property. And my grandmother them told me that the white people came and took it and made it into an all-white resort, beachfront property resort, or whatever the case may be. And my grandfather told me that they cleared those trees down with their hands themselves and made all the roads there. The name of the town in North Carolina is Latham, North Carolina. The whole town was named after my great-grandfather. So most of us, when we trace our history back, we will find it don't lead no further than this right here. We are aboriginal right here. This is the fabled land of Atlantis. When the Egyptians spoke of Atlantis and spoke to the Greeks, they said, you go through them straits of Gibraltar, and in that ocean there's an island, and there's a continent, and there's a number of series of smaller islands. This is Atlantis. They said the kings of that land were so mighty, that empire was so vast and mighty, kings were so rich and famous, there would never be kings as rich and famous as these kings. And this is the Egyptians speaking. There was a mighty empire here. Down in Yucatan, Mexico, you have what we call the Pyramid University. This is where the Moorish dispensation of civilization began. because there they perfect the science of mathematics scaling from 0 to 9, the zodiac, and geometry. And that was our science. That's why when you look on the back of the dollar bill, you see there's 2 seals here. This is the only nation with a 2-sided seal. This seal you see here with the pyramid is the seal of our ancestors and our federal government that we had set up in here in this hemisphere going way back. This is the seal of the 6 European tribes that we allowed to set up here. That is why above our seal says Annuit Coeptus. He had favored our undertaking. I mean, it was our federal government here that was already established, what they call Iroquois Confederacy, so on and so forth, was already established, that taught them the science of government and allowed them to set up here. And here you see this flag has 6 white stripes and 7 red. And the elders taught us that those 6 white stripes stands for the British, the Irish, the Scottish, the French, the Dutch, and the German. The 6 European tribes that we allowed to set up here. And all they had initially was the eastern seaboard. The rest was ours. The elders also taught us some things. Now, I know this is going to sound crazy, but do the research and you're going to be surprised at what you find. The elders told us that the original Nile was here. Old man Mississippi. The Missouri being the blue and the Ohio being the white. Until this day, where them two come together, there's a city there called Cairo to this day. And that area is called Little Egypt. Then you go down into what the elders taught us was Alabama and so on and so forth being Lower Egypt. Then you get into Memphis, Tennessee, the Memphite theology. Kentucky, King Tut. And then you start to look a little further, and then you find out that there was an archaeological cover-up involving the Smithsonian Institute, where they found thousands and thousands of artifacts. They found artifacts showing human beings contemporary with dinosaurs. A lot of this information they put on ships and dumped into the Atlantic Ocean. Some of it they got still in hidden chambers that they say you can't go in there because it got asbestos and it's unsafe. There's a part of the Grand Canyon where they have all Egyptian names, Tet, Osiris, Isis, and they got that part blocked off. They said it's too dangerous for the people to go there. To this day, this exists. The elders, I'm just hitting a number of different points because there's so much to this. You know, I've done over 15,000 hours of research. I nearly sleep in libraries. I live in libraries. This is the reason why I started publishing the books I have back there, because I have so much stuff in my library, and it's hard to get, it's hard to find, so I said, let me just make it available. And they're all $3, $4, and $5 to make these bits and pieces available because these are important missing links. The history that we have now was mainly concocted around the period of 1854 to 1865. I should say it was really perfected during that time, and it involved a man by the name of Horace Greeley. Horace Greeley was the editor of a newspaper here in New York called the New York Tribune, one of the largest papers not only in America but throughout the European world. Karl Marx was just the London correspondent for the New York Tribune. It was Greeley who published Marx's books. This is a worldwide conspiracy. They called themselves the Utopian Socialists. This is one of their names. And they came together, and I found a letter one time between Horace Greeley and another man. And in this letter, this is before the Communist Manifesto, so on and so forth, was published, and they was talking about what we're going to do about this industrial civilization, this industrial revolution. The people were poor, starving. They sincerely wanted to make a change and make a difference. So Marx Greeley took on the position of the state own everything type of thing, communism, socialist type of thing. Whereas the other man said, no, let's do the welfare state where people give charity out the good of their heart. Well, they both, what happened was that they went with both. They said, look, we'll keep the welfare state here, and we'll export the communist experiment over there. And see how this was a worldwide conspiracy. They changed the books, all the teachers in the institution of higher learning. I'm gonna get ready to wind up. I just want to go through this course outline real quick. This is a course that I teach for the Moors, and before I came in, there was no place you could go to formally learn about what this is all about more. So I put together this course because there was a need for it. I'm just going to read quickly, if I may, the points on the outline, and I'm going to just leave it at that, and I'll let you know how the course is available. The first lesson is called the Zodiac Key. And that lesson gets into the foundations of what we call moral civilization and how we utilize the zodiac, mathematics and geometry. The lesson is number 2 is zodiacus, and that deals with the androgynous woman who were here first and brought the male about. And this was because the woman had to go through a certain types of experiences. She had a desire for new types of experiences, namely of the sexual nature. And this is why males were produced. We're just exaggeration of a certain parts of the woman's body. The clitoris, the penis, and so on and so forth. There's a lot to this. In this lesson, we even have, we show you the chromosomes. How the woman has 2 X chromosomes, the man has the X and Y chromosome. The Y chromosome is actually a degenerate form of the X chromosome. And we get into it, about the matriarchal and everything, the whole 9. 3, the history of Yaqub. And this deals with the team of, and this is where connected with the lessons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This shows you where a team of scientists in Yucatan, Mexico, the premier university down there, made the European race through a series of genetic experiments. And it was involving a certain animal known as the Negro, Javiro, Arab, chimpanzee. And the combination of these 2, and this is where you get the Sasquatch, this is where you get Darwin's theory of evolution, which is no more than intermediary stages of this experimentation that was taking place. And they made a movie one time called The Owls of Dr. Moreau, where they was experimenting through these type of things. So I'm gonna get ready to wind it on up. Anybody who wants more information with regards to this, we have some flyers in the back, and you can come check out the course and get your nationality card and everything. I thank you for your patience, and I would like to introduce Dr. Delbert Blair, a brother who tapes I have looked at, and I've seen him speak before, and I'm honored to be here at this lecture, and I'll anxiously wait to hear what he has to say. Peace. It's going to be in.
Okay, first of all, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on when you got up, and I think it's afternoon here in New York, right? My cities run together, my time runs together. I don't even know. All I know is it's a beautiful day the Creator has brought, and I'm very happy to see such beautiful faces. Assalamu alaikum, and also hello. I was getting fascinated by the brother who had on the kippah and the Moorish scientist. My father was a Moorish scientist. My father's from Jamaica, and I spent a lot of my early life in Jamaica seeing things that people said couldn't happen because my mother was a conjure woman, if you know what that means. So I was exposed at the very early days to the mystic side. One of the things that I understood outside of the Masonic leagues, and if there are Masons here, please don't get offended, I have taught Masons, okay? The Moorish temple scientists probably come closer to truth than anyone that I know. The truth has been so scattered throughout the quote-unquote diaspora till to get segments and get returned to what seems truth now sounds like a fairy tale. I definitely want to talk with that brother again, and I almost wanted to say, hey, don't call me up yet. I want to hear some more. I don't do that often. So as far as I'm concerned, in my limited fashion, the brother had a lot of truths, and I find again that the populace of New York has been very blessed. It's just that many of them have not taken advantage of their blessings. You have a lot of brain power here. As I always start to do when getting into my presentations, I don't like to call them lectures. Lectures can be boring. I hope none of my presentations are ever boring. If they are, then I need to stop coming here. I try to give a little background as to where I get information from or how I reach certain conclusions before I bombard you with facts and entertain you with the humor that it goes along with my personality. I still find, I think education should be not so serious, especially if it's enjoyable, and I try to make it do both. So those of you who take notes and are bookworms and are researchers and so on and so forth, not all of this information comes from these books. Some come from pamphlets, some come from other sources, but in the main, again, these are books that will probably bring you the information you're going to hear until it gets to the very heavy psychic part. One is called The Redundant Male. The Redundant Male by Drs. Jeremy Cherfas and Dr. John Gribben and Cherfas. Another book is The Physiological Enigma of Woman. The Physiological Enigma of Woman by Professor Hilton Hotima. Professor Hilton Hotima. Another is The Great Red Dragon. The Great Red Dragon, again by Professor Hilton Hotima. The Sky People. The Sky People. Brinsley Lapoere Trench. Brinsley Lapoere Trench. The Star People. The Star People. One was sky, the next is star. By Brad and Francis Steiger. Brad and Francis Steiger. Man the Unknown. Man the Unknown by Alexis Carroll. Alexis Carroll. Let me also say that at the beginning, many females could save themselves a lot of physical problems by continuing what they did when they were very young girls, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, standing on your head either once a day or twice a day for at least 3.5 to 5 minutes. I start that at the very beginning. I give you your $5 worth at this time. If you want to make extra donations later, great. You can leave and go home if you just understand the importance of what I just told every female in here. Stand on your head once a day. If you can't do it now, have somebody hold your feet up. Invert your position of your body for at least 3.5 minutes. If you get dizzy as soon as you start it for the first 30 days or 30 seconds, and then keep on trying, and if you don't do it but 5 seconds. If you could invert your body for 3.5 minutes a day, which gets away from this tremendous gravitational pull on this planet and all of the iron and poisons that are in the earth, and give you a chance to reverse those cell structures and let the blood, just like the River Nile, run backwards, you'd save yourselves a lot of problems. Now, that's the end of the lecture. It was good talking. Also, again, I have a large group. It's not really so large. We have about 18 active people and about 7 very active people in the Metacenter. And then we have close to 200 members. I wish that I see them usually once a year during the so-called holiday celebrations. One of the ways that we raise money is selling the booklet of prophecies. Most of you have bought it. If you haven't, please buy it from me before I leave. It's $3.50. The booklet of prophecies. It lists the 34 prophecies for the United States. It's cross-reference between Nostradamus, Edgar Casey, Mother Shipton, who was a black woman, lived in Louisiana. She doesn't get the publicity she should have. She was an excellent psychic and prophet. Paracelsus, and a couple other people, and then the Holy Bible. I do that because most of us are more familiar probably with that book than any others, although I do understand the sophistication of my audience here, so I'm simply not denigrating, I'm simply sharing. Wherever we found those things listing a thing that seemingly was the prophecy once or twice, we listed it. We came down with all the things we could have said to 34 prophecies, 4 of which are my psychic ability in effect, and I hope that they are good and standard as the rest of them are. I don't tell you which 4 because then you say, well, those 4, Brother Blair, I'm not going to think about. I'll just go by the old masters. Also, we have a special earthquake insert which shows the 20 most earthquake-prone cities and why, the last time they had one, and so on and so forth. And around New York, around Buffalo, is listed. Also understand the prophecies said for these islands here. And understand that from 96 on, this will probably happen. You'll start getting in this year, 94, an idea of what's going to happen, because everything that can happen will happen one time at least in 94. That means we're in for one heck of 1 year. It was clear people understand what we're coming up against, trying for one more time to let those pompous, egotistical maniacs become at least human and show some signs of spirituality. The books have already said they will not. If they do not, then it starts. Right now, these are warning timblors. They're really not even trimmers yet. They're trimblors. You haven't seen what nature can do when nature finally loses her cool. Today, I heard your president speak and say what was going to happen tomorrow if Bosnia-Herzegovina and Serbs don't do right. Well, this has already been pre-planned. Already, the undertakings are not for the purpose you see, and you'll find it out when you see those kind of troops in your streets in 1996 and 97, in the streets of the United States. They will not use the troops from here. They'll use foreign troops. The foreign troops will show you no mercy. Most of them can't even speak the English language. There are a lot of prophecies, and you're in the time for the fulfillment of those prophecies. I say, as the days seem to run by and quicken, you'll see time is speeding up. Some of you already have noticed that. It is not a joke. Time, as we understand it, is speeding up. You are going to be quickened. You wouldn't be sitting here today when you could be doing other things. You wouldn't have been here last night when you could be doing other things, unless there's a quickening spirit within you that needs food, the real manna from heaven, spiritual food. So, as always, and I'm not joking with you, I'm very, very happy to be here. I wouldn't do anything else if I could, and I'd be very sorry if the Creator did not grant me at least a subsistence and hopefully a good life in speaking to people and sharing the little information that I have. And by your presence here, you make my life worthwhile, and therefore I give as openly and as much as I can. Sometimes I get carried away. Stop me. Usually on the question and answer, it all gets carried out. Today, I want to share with you what was advertised as the Woman Lecture. It's either been called, in general, the True Story of Woman or the Womb Man Lecture. Already, the brother kind of took my thunder and gave you a punchline, so I'm going to have to see if I can find some other punchlines now, because he was sharing with you again one of the secrets about the true creation of Earth, woman, and what a patriarchal male society has done to try and take her away from her proper vestitures. Females in general have a lot of problems with other females. Housewives in general have a lot of problems and distrust for the working girl and the working woman. The women who work with the husbands of housewives are thought of by housewives to be the biggest threat on the planet. Not the earthquakes and tornadoes, but the woman that the man sees every day and has to work with her. We find again that most of the secretaries, co-workers, and now executives and sometimes bosses are females who are ruling their men, and the men have to sycophant in order to keep their jobs. So not only is there a problem in the immediate nuclear family, but there's a problem on the job. Women scrutinize women very, very closely. The appraisal of a woman for another woman is such that I find men pale by comparison in their criticism or critiquing of either males or females. It takes a woman to tell you about a woman. But also, there is a bonding amongst females that I don't find amongst males in general outside of the sports arena and fraternal groups. It is a mutual benefit and understanding what suffering is all about. Now, it's terrible to say that all females suffer, but if you listen to some of the conversations, as I've been privileged to do so, and have shared with you conversations as I would act as a panel organization or moderator for panels of women, every woman feels in general that she is put upon or has gone through pain that nobody except another woman could possibly begin to understand. And one of such pains, of course, is the miracle of childbirth. I have heard women say there is no pain a man can endure that rivals that of childbirth, and yet I see women getting pregnant all the time and looking forward to carrying children. So I say, something's wrong, you're lying to me. There must be a pleasure that comes with that pain that is undescribable, because I wouldn't go through it twice. Somebody would get killed. So, not being a female, but admiring and loving the female, I say there are certain special things that you do and have that obviously you don't quite share honestly with the male, and so I've tried to pique your scenario by researching and studying you. Let me state also at the beginning that there are many ways now that women get on top of our society. White women, especially now, dominate our society. Black women try to dominate a society which has been usurped, and I won't spend time with that because most of you are more than familiar with the history, so-called black history, Afro-American, Kemetic history, interchanging with America. But I will say this. Whether it is sexual wiles or womanly ways, the woman usually gets her way in the long run with any male. It just depends on how far she's willing to go in mind or in body. But usually knowing herself, she can get her way. Why do I preface all of this first? Because it is now getting to be almost a crime to be a true female, to be a real woman. And those that strive to be feminine, whatever that means, and to be a real woman really catch it from others who feel that they don't want to be that type of female and a real woman. I say to you this, be what you have to be, and be it proudly, but don't be hypocritical. Do what you have to do, but do it with the understanding that your consciousness is as good as anybody else's consciousness, and if you at least do that, when you pay for it, good or bad, you will know why you are paying for it. I did research, and I start off very basic. And I looked into the encyclopedias and the dictionaries, and I got the following explanation for the following words, and I share them with you. Woman, an adult female human being. Any problems with that? Most of you agree? At least we start out in agreement. Womanhood, the time or condition of being a woman. Pretty fair in comprehension, understanding? You still with me, all right? Girl, a female child or a young unmarried woman. But then I also looked up and I found out in Teutonic times, I didn't ask for this, I just found it, the word girl meant young boy. Now that interested me. I then looked biblically, and it stated, created from Adam's rib to be a helpmeet to man. And I thought about that, a helpmeet, and I said, how do they spell that? M-E-E-T or M-E-A-T? But since man is the dominant species on earth, and since man was supposed to subject and subdue, then the meats have to go under. Women is and women are the weaker sex. We all know that. Everybody is aware of that. And I'm going to read you some reasons to prove exactly what I just stated. I mean, I saw some turnings there, grimaces. You all are aware that women are the weaker sex, aren't you? We didn't stay in agreement past 3 statements. Some of you actually believe that woman is not the weaker sex. It's going to be a long afternoon. Well, let me try to educate you as to why these are truths. Throughout the world, there are more widows than there are widowers. There are more women, 100, or octogenarians and over, than men. What are you looking at me? I'm telling you how I'm going to prove my statement. Just bear with me. The female body, on a worldwide consideration, retains the characteristics of youth much longer than does the male body. Can you get in the picture? Less or fewer women have hardening of the arteries than men, the incidence of ulcers in men, and again, most of the deterioration and the signs of age show less in the female body than they do in the male body. Told you I was going to prove a point. There's more heart failure and apoplexy in men than there is in women. Women can usually hold their breath without deterioration of cell structure deprived of oxygen, and much more less suffocated than men. And women can usually endure cold weather on a general basis better than men, and can adjust to heat temperatures when their thermostat works correctly more so than men. Are you beginning to see the picture of the proof of what my opening statement was? How many of you are still with me? Confusion and puzzlement. Oh, good. Women in general at higher altitudes, like in the Andes Mountains and so, can usually carry heavier loads than men because the muscle fiber is toned better, and the amount of oxygen within the cell structures is greater than that of men. The female brain not only has a finer texture and more complex organization than that of the male, but relative to overall body weight, it is 1/4 pound heavier. There are fewer female baby miscarriages than there are male baby miscarriages. And during childhood, the female is mentally superior to male because the girl of 7, usually because of the rich thyroid hormones, has a brain capacity and a body capacity that dwarfs a boy in both mind and body. They're usually taller, more symmetric, and have better brain cohesion and function than does the boy. So now you understand that I have hopefully proven to you my opening statement. Is there anybody now that disagrees with anything that I said? I didn't think you women would. And I know the fellas have just said, what in the world has gone on with that nut up there? Bear with me, okay? But by the age of 12, or when what is called puberty sets in, most of those things begin to change. So much so that by the time the men and women reach 21 years of age, the women, in suffering so much mental, physical, and nerve endurance, has a hard time competing or goes one-sided. What happens between the time of birth, puberty, and maturity of the age of 21 is where this lecture really begins. What happens is based on one word, in effect, men. It is based on menstruation. Menstruation. Many times it is pronounced menstruation. That is not correct. But one thing is, it starts with men. Menstruation. Menstruating women, in general, lose calcium, thyroxine, iodine, phosphorus, lecithin, vitamin E, vitamin B1, 6, 12, 2, 6, magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, and sometimes for some women this starts 2 weeks prior to the menses. You think about that. Calcium, for instance, stabilizes the nervous system. Phosphorus is found in all healthy, normal cells. Iodine causes the growth and maintenance of the thyroid gland, and this is why the thyroid gland in women tends to swell during menstruation. I give you another key so you don't run off and spend all your money at the doctor's. I repeat that. That's why the thyroid gland in women tends to swell during menstruation. Science has proven that the birth of congenital idiots increases when one travels inland where the soil and the food lacks iodine. Iodine is also an essential element for the maturation and maintenance of healthy female cells. What is very interesting is that not all women on this planet menstruate. Also, not all women on this planet have ever menstruated. But all women think that all women do. Let me also spend a little time with that concept. Most Hindu women do not, and definitely did not, menstruate. One of the last famous Hindu women to achieve prominence on the world stage was Indira Gandhi, who, until she started doing certain things and making certain practices as she toured the world, readily admitted she had not suffered a menstrual period until she began to do these things. Had she would followed her religious undertakings, maybe it never would have started. Most ancient African or Kemetic women did not menstruate. Not Belkis, not Apatia, not any of the so-called queens of Africa seemingly did once they began to have knowledge of self. The Oracle of the Delphi, according to the Greeks, were a group of women who pontificated and led Greece through its heyday. It was not led by the warrior men. They did the fighting. The thinking was done by the oracles, and many of the oracles were females. They are said that the oracles did not menstruate. We hear a lot of talk about the Amazon women, the Teutonic women, the female Gauls, the West African Watetas, the East African Bossamans, the Andambis of the Congo. Most of these Oceanic women and most of these Kemetic women did not menstruate. These women were the strong women of our history. And in many cases, they could grow to be 7 and 8 feet tall. That's why amongst the Watusi and the Watusi women, when they told you of their diets and things that used to be different, they have some of the most tall, or the tallest women and persons, in fact, on earth itself. The Old Testament said, and the ancient Hebrews said, that menstruation was unclean, and that a woman should be confined until cleansed of her issue. But understand again, a lot of that book was tampered with by a patriarchal society, and if you're not aware of that, and I think most of you should be, then we have a lot of interaction that we could go through. With the advent of monogamy, and now I'm thinking about Africa, monogamy, by what we would call the Christian forefathers who wanted their church to really flourish, came the taught, learned sensation that menstruation was correct, menstruation was necessary, and was the woman's paying for her sins for having made Adam eat the apple and now must also bear her child in pain and affliction. And many of you bought that, didn't you? I state to you that menstruation is not a cleansing process. it is only the result of the deterioration of the egg, unfertilized, and that men have perpetuated a myth that women collectively have bought, and I can at least begin to forgive some African Kemetic women because they didn't have too much of a choice. In their old habitats, in their old lands, many of them, as I say, were taught better. I'm going to now talk to you as adults, if I already haven't, and I hope again you will accept these things with an adult mind, and then on the Q&A, talk to me, question me if you will. The whites is a street slang for a term called leukorrhea. It is an issue, a secretion from the vaginal area which women sometimes suffer from. If the womb becomes catarrhal, has mucus, has a cold, the whites is one of the results. The inflammation of the uterine lining produces, in many cases, menstruation, and many things can cause that, as we shall talk about. The fluids lost in leukorrhea, or colloquial on the street, the whites, are important vital substances. Lipoids, alkaline lactates, natural sodium, potassium, calcium, plus brain and nerve foods in the form of lecithin. In fact, the mucous corpuscles present in leukorrhea are presently hemoglobin capable. What do I mean by that? It means that they are capable of forming human blood-carrying, oxygenating corpuscles. So not only does a woman then suffer the menses, but if she also has leukorrhea, she is constantly losing the ability to build life-giving blood cells, which anyone knows without that, the body does what? Deteriorates. Some women are on a constant menses. And then you wonder why some women are very irritable, very agitative, anemic. They get dizzy and have migraine headaches and jump at the sound of a firecracker 20 miles away, which they think they can hear. If anyone suffered that kind of loss from puberty till death, I wonder again why women are not half crazy. There are some men and other women that say they are. I didn't say it. I say, faced with that loss, we could have a problem. I state that if the menses was cessated, if it stopped, if the blood loss and even the alkaline lactate loss was ceased and stopped, then not only would women be very strong, and they wouldn't be intuitive, they would be psychic, but they also could give birth to babies without a man being anywhere around. And there is the key to your problem and your problematic solution. You've bought into the coat's lie, the white coat's lie, the medical doctor's lie, which came about under a patriarchal system. If you start understanding the cadavers that were messed with in England and France at the turn of the 17th, 18th century, and experimentation still goes on. In fact, they, by law, are given under the caduceus the right to practice. And the practice is upon, in many cases, you as females. There was a theory called the Ovis theory, spelled O-V-I-S-T, pronounced Ah. It was proven, not postulated, I repeat, proven by Professor Jacques Loeb of Stanford University, that the embryo develops from the egg alone and does not require spermatozoon. Did you hear what I just stated? According to Professor Loeb. You can make a developing embryo to become mitigated and go into first, second, and third trimesters of birth without the need of the male sperm under certain circumstances. The prevailing medical theory is one of epigenesis, and it says, again, that you must have the union of sperm and egg in order to produce and in order to get pregnant. Maybe. To start this and give it practicality, we have to go back to a basic concept that some people still are not sure about. I state that women had to have been created before men or formed before man, because you cannot get a man from a man. You cannot get a woman from a man, but you can get a man from a woman, and you can get a woman from a woman, and think about that. Any problem with that statement, that compound complex sentence? I don't have one. This is what the old church, the Church of England, and under King Constantine and the Bishop Eusebius, the Church of Rome, had to get rid of and had to change. The last honesty amongst Caucasian principalities dealing with Christianity, and especially Catholicism, came with the onset of the Greeks, who broke away into the Greek Orthodox Church because they got tired of the lies that were being formed and wanted to continue with some semblance of truth from the Greek society. The last time when the Caucasians told truth. The male cannot reproduce himself. The female can. What does that mean if carried to the furthest extent? It means that if the woman also could decide whether she was going to produce a male or a female, the race of man could cease to exist, as we now understand it, as a double gender. That, at one time on earth, was a tremendous problem. The universal cosmic age theorem is that a cosmic egg was created, and from that generated everything, and that in the egg still is the semblance of first creation. Things start from an egg, whether it be a hard shell finish or a little ovum attached to the uterine wall. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Let's take a little guess on that. I want to have a little fun here again. How many say that the chicken came first? May I see your hand? If you say the chicken hand first, just raise your hand. Only 3, 4 people. How many say that the egg came first? 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, about 6 people. How many are not going to get on a limb and commit either way? You're just going to listen to the lecture. Okay. Well, in 1975, they connected a vibrational detecting device to an unfertilized egg, and they got a rhythmic pulsing beat just like that of a human heart or pulse. What is generally an unfertilized egg? Somebody kind of share with me quickly from the audience. What's the difference between an unfertilized egg and a fertilized egg? Chicken didn't mate, no males around. Yet they have detected, and that experiment has been tried and tried again, some kind of rhythm or pulse within that egg itself. They also found in vertebrates, those that have a central vertebral column again, a spine, if you would, that on the phases and oscillations of the moon, that pulse varied, but was always even more intense. We understand that humans are the dominant species on this planet Earth. We are the masters, we are the greatest, and everything else is beneath us, right? Right, yeah, right. The acorn, which has a seed, a phylum of vegetable and plant, contains everything in it that the seed needs to become a mighty oak, including a print on its phloem showing what it's going to look out when it matures, what it's going to look like. Isn't that interesting? Ever cut an acorn in part and looked at it? I mean, some of these mutated acorns now that have been gassed and pre-picked, you can't tell anything from. But get the real seed of an pure bone acorn, and what do you have when you cut it in half? Picture of a tree. I mean, that's somebody really blueprinted that one. They already said, this is what you're going to look like when you grow up. And that's just on a